Vault 92, and the echoes of insanity. Unlike any other vault in the United States, it was not designed to merely shelter its residents from the nuclear apocalypse. Vault Tech, in its ever-curious and morally ambiguous pursuit of human behavior, had chosen a population not for physical strength, nor for their ability to endure isolation in the conventional sense. Vault 92's residents were musicians, talented, trained, and carefully selected for their mastery of melody, harmony, and rhythm. The Vault's purpose, as recorded in Vault Tech files, was deceptively simple: maintain morale through music while observing human behavior under long-term auditory stress. Yet beneath this seemingly benign objective lay a far darker, more experimental ambition. Vault Tech intended to study the effects of white noise and subliminal sound modulation on the human psyche, how continuous auditory manipulation could erode cognition, disrupt social cohesion, and destabilize even the most disciplined minds. Population selection. Vault Tech's recruitment process for Vault 92 was precise. Musicians were hand-picked from symphonies, conservatories, and music schools across the country. Their selection was based not only on technical skill, but on the ability to read and interpret complex musical notation. Candidates were evaluated on emotional expressiveness and adaptability, traits which would later make them highly susceptible to auditory manipulation. Upon arrival, residents were greeted by Vault Tech staff and the overseer. The Vault's living quarters were spacious, designed to accommodate both comfort and efficiency. Practice rooms lined every corridor, acoustically optimized to resonate perfectly with instruments ranging from violins and cellos to pianos and percussion. The Vault's architecture was intentionally designed to serve as a soundscape laboratory, with corridors and rooms tuned to precise frequencies intended to affect mood and thought. Residents were unaware of the true nature of the experiment. To them, the Vault was a sanctuary from the atomic wasteland outside. Music was encouraged. Practice schedules were implemented meticulously. Vault Tech's data collection, however, began immediately, quietly monitoring every note played, every rehearsal conducted, every interaction between residents. Terminal Log Overseer. Entry 1. Initial population intake complete. Residents assigned quarters. Practice schedules implemented. Preliminary auditory testing to commence. Subjects remain unaware of experimental sound modulation. Observe behavioral adaptation under controlled acoustic stress. At first, life in Vault 92 was structured and cooperative. Residents practiced individually and collectively, performing ensemble pieces that filled the halls with music. The communal areas were equipped with speakers, broadcasting continuous low-frequency audio designed to enhance focus and alertness. These soundscapes were subtle at first, barely perceptible, but their purpose was deliberate: to condition the residents' responses to auditory stimuli. The descent begins. Over the months, the continuous sound modulation began to take its toll. Residents reported unusual phenomena: phantom noises, fleeting dissonances, and rhythmic hallucinations that could not be explained by instruments or rehearsals alone. The human brain, Vault Tech had hypothesized, was highly sensitive to subtle auditory stresses, and Vault 92 would serve as proof. By the end of the first year, minor irritability was observed. String players, for instance, began missing notes, while percussionists showed irregular sleep patterns. The halls that once resonated with harmonious collaboration slowly became stages of tension. Small arguments erupted over trivial matters: an offbeat tempo here, a misread note there. The overseer meticulously documented these changes, noting that while outward productivity remained intact, subtle psychological stresses were accumulating. Terminal Log Overseer. Entry 2. Week 52. Observations indicate heightened irritability among percussionists and string sections. Sleep disruption evident. Minor hallucinations reported by multiple residents. White noise cycles adjusted to 0.25 Hz increments. Cognitive stress increasing. Residents remain unaware. By the second year, the effects intensified. Residents began accusing one another of sabotage. The music that had once served as a means of cooperation became a medium of conflict. Even minor misalignments in ensemble performances were perceived as deliberate acts of subversion. Social cohesion deteriorated rapidly, and the once orderly halls became permeated with tension and mistrust. The overseer, too, was not immune. Isolated from outside contact and immersed in the same auditory environment, they began to experience symptoms mirroring those of the residents: hallucinations, obsessive focus on rhythms, and creeping paranoia. The boundary between observer and subject blurred, reflecting Vault-Tec's cruel efficiency in measuring human vulnerability. Daily life and hallucinations. Life in Vault 92 continued under a thin veneer of normalcy. Residents adhered to practice schedules, conducted ensemble rehearsals, and performed in communal areas. Instruments were played, sheet music meticulously followed, and routines maintained. Yet the underlying psychological instability grew more pronounced. Hallways, once corridors of cooperation, now echoed with whispered accusations. Phantom rhythms seemed to emanate from the walls. Residents reported hearing instruments play when none were present, notes lingering in the air after rehearsals had concluded. Individual musicians became increasingly withdrawn, preferring isolation over collaboration, yet still haunted by the soundscapes that enveloped them. Even group performances descended into chaos. Harmonies fell apart, rhythms clashed, and the collective sound that had once defined Vault 92 became distorted cacophony. The experiment, from Vault-Tec's perspective, was proceeding exactly as intended. Social bonds were fracturing, mental stability was eroding, and the power of sound as a tool of control was being demonstrated with precision. Terminal Log Overseer. Entry 3. Orchestra rehearsal descended into chaos. Multiple residents report auditory distortions, unable to maintain rhythm. Group cohesion absent. Psychological stress escalating. Observation: experiment proceeding as expected. As time progressed, the residents' mental health deteriorated further. Conflicts became more frequent and more severe. Individuals barricaded themselves in quarters or practice rooms, abandoning communal areas. Sleep became fragmented. Dreams invaded by discordant notes and rhythmic hallucinations. The overseer's notes reflect growing desperation, though outwardly they maintained professional detachment. Vault-Tec's white noise cycles continued without pause. The sounds, subtle yet omnipresent, created an environment in which residents could neither escape nor rest. Even silence, when it briefly occurred, became unbearable, highlighting the dependency and strain imposed by the experiment. The final months. In the final months of Vault 92's population, the psychological collapse was nearly complete. Residents had withdrawn into themselves, instruments lay abandoned mid-performance, and sheet music was torn or defaced in fits of frustration. The halls were quiet, save for the omnipresent, low-frequency cycles and the occasional echo of a resident's isolated rehearsal. The overseer's final logs illustrate the depth of the psychological breakdown, blending meticulous observation with creeping despair. Terminal Log Overseer. Entry 4. final. All attempts at maintaining social order have failed. Residents withdrawn completely, hallways empty. Sound cycles continue automatically. Cannot differentiate between music and hallucination. The human mind is fragile. Music is dangerous, perhaps too dangerous. Closing log. When the vault was rediscovered decades later, explorers and historians found only fragments of life that had once thrived within its walls. Instruments remained where they were abandoned, sheet music scattered and torn. The overseer's logs were preserved as chilling documentation of the experiment's conclusion. There was no fire, no flood, no radiation breach. The destruction of Vault 92 was silent, cerebral, and total. Vault 92 stands as a stark testament to the extremes of Vault-Tec experimentation. It demonstrates that cruelty can manifest not only through visible disaster, but through calculated psychological manipulation. Music, a humanizing force, became an instrument of suffering. Its legacy serves as a cautionary tale. Even in the absence of physical danger, the mind is vulnerable, and when manipulated by an unseen hand, even the most refined individuals can be undone. The story of Vault 92 is one of silence, sound, and fragility. It is a reminder that the wasteland's most insidious threats may not be radioactive, visible, or immediate. Some dangers are intangible, psychological, and eternal, resonating like a chord, played too long, haunting the mind long after the music itself has ended.